Nicky P, what it do, brother? Nice to see you again.
Manny Raya, what up?
Like, like we've been doing. We went kids, we went teenagers. Now we're going in our 20s. As you've seen, we've kind of gone deep into ourselves and who we are and how it is that we feel. So going into our 20s, I kind of want to pull off of some things that you said last time and kind of see where it is that they lead us. So I kind of want you to focus on yourself. I'll take a step back for the beginning and then I'll go into myself. But my first question originally was going to be like, Nick, uh, who were you in your 20s? But there was some things that stood out to me that you said about your teens leading to your 20s. So I want to point those out. You said that you had an unhealthy of habit of swallowing and bottling up emotions and how those led you into your 20s. You talked about being aloof and how everything was a matter of fact when you were in your 20s. You said that you were not facing the trauma and the negative experiences that you had and how you focused all into work. So I get the point that, like, boom, focus on work, head down, put it down, make money. It's kind of what you said, right? How did all of that
Mhm.
kind of feel inside in your 20s? Like, how was that? Did you feel emotionally stifled, or who were you as a person?
Uh, when I first came to Santa Barbara, I was like 17. So I was like, in the midst of coming into my 20s, and I didn't know anybody. So I spent, a good like first part of that kind of like by myself. But um, I had mentioned, I think, in a couple of the earlier episodes where I'd really focused on a lot of art and music. So I was like pretty introverted, but I felt like my outlet was artwork and writing and music.
And so what did the artwork and music do for you personally, where you felt like you were shutting down in other areas of your life?
It was like a cathartic. Again, I think I mentioned this in kind of the end of like the second or third episode. Is like I just found music and painting and artwork to be like this cathartic understanding where, granted, what you were listening to or looking at wasn't necessarily exactly how you were feeling, but it just was a way to feel something. um, so I just really started immersing myself into the arts, I guess, because I felt like that they um, kind of not spoke to exactly how I was feeling, but it just made me feel something. So I really kind of like dove deep into myself and like, how artwork really made me not really feel alone.
What how did our work make you feel? What was that relation? Like, what was coming out of you that you didn't have before?
I guess it was just a dialogue with people about, how I'm feeling. So instead of like talking to someone about it, I'd like put on a record, or instead of like, you know disclosing, something like good that happened or bad that happened, I'd like let my frustrations out, like by like looking at artwork or writing my own, like whether it's poems or things like that. So, but at the same time, it wasn't like, you know it was like the healthiest thing I could do at the time, I feel like.
And is that because you felt alone and like you didn't think other people were like on the same vibe as you, and so the arts is who you could relate to?
Well, I just didn't feel like I had always felt like my problems would be a burden on someone else. So like the last thing I'd want to do, especially like someone who's new and fresh in like a new area, doesn't know anybody, like I'm not gonna start hanging out with someone and be like, oh yeah, well, nice to meet you, bro. Let me dump all my emotional baggage on you while we're having our first beer. It's like, no, I was never gonna do that. And I still like don't do that. And it's still like a very select few people that I like really get into with shit like this. So um, that was already a thing of mine where I just didn't want to. I just felt like I was burdening people with my shit when, later down the road I just realized that, people want to know and they're just curious about how you're doing.
Did you feel quite alone around that time? Because it's
Yeah, but I didn't like. I mean, I did, but I didn't necessarily like I don't think I understood it as that at the time. I just kind of thought, oh, I'm in a new place. I don't know anybody. This is just what it is. This is just what it is. This is just moving and being in a new space and being on your own the first time when you're young. I didn't really know better. And I think um, like me being naive was helpful in that sense, but I still felt alone.
Okay, because I had a similar experience, but like I did feel like I was alone. Like once I stopped like the gang shit, or like in the middle of stopping, I went to City College and there's this program called EOPS. And so it's for first generation students, like people that are underprivileged. And so a lot of us would just hang out in that office and be in those classes. And so they like gave us the feeling like, you're supposed to be here, like we're here for you, and they'd help us out. But once I transferred to UCSB, it was like putting me in the twilight zone because I was bald headed and baggy clothes and nobody looked like me. Like I didn't think I belonged there. Like I'd go back to City College and just be like doing my homework there and doing my stuff there because I just didn't feel like that was the place for me. There was no other gang kids. And I was just like, did I just make it here because like I'm a charity case? Like, am I smart enough to be here? And it really hit hard for me when I went to grad school, because when I went to San Francisco, I'd sit down in these seminars and I'd have done the reading. And so I'd be up on game, but in class, all of these kids would talk about like things that they learned in high school. And I didn't go to high school. So it was just like I had to go home and read up and try to catch up and read the article. So I was just working a job and trying to catch up. And like I went to the one of my professor's office and I told her that I wanted to quit because I didn't think I belonged there.
But what made you, was it a conversation with them that made you continue on that track?
She flipped the game on me. She was like, you're one of the best analyzers that I have in this class as far as like understanding the material. She's like, you explain it the way it's supposed to be explained. And a lot of the times that these kids talk about this high school stuff is because they don't understand the material. So they go to what it is that they do know and kind of go off of that. She said, I actually wanted to make you a student professor and have you teach next semester. And I was like tripping. I was like, what? Like, I'm a gang kid. Like, I'm not a professor. And she said, this is where she flipped it on me. She said, I bet you most of your life you've been looked at like less than, like, your voice doesn't matter. It doesn't count. She's like, I want you to know that it does. I want you to know that you have a place here and I want you to know that you belong here. And that kind of like geared me to start getting to the next level, and it was then that I realized that a lot of the things that I felt emotionally don't get explained. And even at the higher academic levels now, like at a PhD level where we talk about this shit in classes, I still don't think that they fucking get it, because it's just like, we can talk about the crime rate in class and how it is that it affects minorities. But when you're on the fucking streets gang banging, you feel the crime rate. Like, you see your homies getting locked up. You're watching your back because people are getting stabbed. Like, you feel it. When I was in school and like we'd be reading about like the newspaper and about crimes that are going on and people getting arrested. Those are my homies. That's the people that I kick it with, that I know the crime rate, right? When in academia, you talk about microaggressions and this is a microaggression. Like, I felt that even in a poor neighborhood, going to buy corn from the corn man, when you give them a food stamp as opposed to the other people that are giving them $1, like, you feel that. So it helped me kind of open my eyes as to who it is that I am, what my role is, what I can be, and the experiences that I have to offer that other people might not understand, right? And so that's what I think is beautiful about your point in what the arts have done for you, because what academia did for me in that sense, I feel the arts have played a great role in your life to help you discover yourself, your emotions, where you're at, and how to grow.
Yeah, and I feel like, granted, these are two different journeys, but at the end of the day, I feel like both these situations are each of us finding a sense of identity, because all you needed was just a little bit of affirmation in what you were doing, and then that helped you like solidify a big part of your identity, which then helps you, I think, move forward and be, who it is you want to be.
And so for you in your 20s, then what was that moment that gave you that affirmation? And then what was this fire under your ass that gave you that drive?
I feel like when I graduated college and started working full time, not in any not in any professional environment, but more so just like, hustling at Boathouse and then starting the business. I think that's when things started to align for me. And my affirmation, where you had that from an instructor, I got the affirmation from, serving food to a lot of people, something that was very sacred to me and something that was shared at a table with people you loved. But to then put yourself on a plate and offer that to other people, like, it puts you in a pretty vulnerable spot, but puts you in a place that like is sharing and caregiving in a way too. And like for people to come back and thank you for that, and not only give you money, which is one thing, but to come back and really be like thankful for what you do. I think that gave me the affirmation and also the confidence to kind of like do whatever the fuck I want to do.
And so you won a barbecue contest in the independent magazine, right? Would you say that moment you gained a sense of affirmation, or was it something else around that time? And what was the confidence level like?
Yeah, that felt really nice because I had a lot of like close and dear friends there who were like really excited for me and with me. But I think the affirmation came not necessarily from people and like, I hate to say like customers, but came more from like peers and people who I look up to in the area, who were then starting to say, oh, you know what, like this shit's pretty good, and like this guy's dedicated and he's focused, and it's not something to fuck with. I think that's when because I don't have like where you come, like how you felt, you didn't have a high school diploma and now you're in these collegiate, like there's coursework, but you're at the same time getting an opportunity to be a student, like professor or aide or whatever. Like for me, I don't have any culinary institute background. All I know is what I've learned from my family and like from cookbooks, pretty self-taught, autodidactic, I guess, and I feel like you're the same way, where we like to teach ourselves things, but like it leaves you in this weird place to where like you don't necessarily have the accolades or resume to like on paper, but like you're still dedicated as fuck to getting the job done and doing it how you want to do it. So it was getting some affirmation from like peers who I respected that really gave me like that self fulfilling sense of like what I'm doing is the right thing.
Okay. And I
Does that
remember,
make sense?
yeah, absolutely. And I remember you in your 20s. And something that I remember about you is that you were always experimenting, trying different things, just like in the kitchen 24/7, nonstop, always like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. This turned out this way, this turned out that way, I'm going to do this. And so for me, my affirmation came from Shelly telling me I was worthy, wanting to be a student professor. And when she said that, I was scared that a student would ask me a question in class that I didn't know how to answer. So that's where my drive came from. Like, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
study my ass off so that whatever question that they ask me, I'm ready for. And I kept
Yeah.
that same motivation to the master's level, to the PhD level. It's just like, when they ask me this question, I'm going to be damn sure I'm ready, right? What gave you that drive to get in that kitchen, and what gave you that drive to just get in that kitchen and go?
Well, you're, again, without the resume or on paper, you're just a thug who's got a book in front of you, right? Like, no offense, but like I think that's how you were feeling. For me, same position. I'm just a fucking random dude who's been cooking out of his fucking garage and thinks he knows a couple things. So it once you get like a couple tastes of like of affirmation, then it's just you kind of want to keep continuing to taste that, you know, no pun intended, but you want to keep tasting like a little bit more affirmation and more and more and more, not in like this like ego stroking way, but just in this to help you remind yourself that you're doing the fucking right thing and that people are appreciating what you're doing, even though you don't have, again, the resume or the background that, you know, someone else might. So it really became like a thirst and a hunger to like prove yourself a little bit, and you kind of have to a little bit more because you've got people in the world who do have those resumes, and you've got to like compete against them, so you kind of have to be a little bit of an underdog and believe in yourself a little bit more.
And as you've moved up the ladder in levels of success, what has surprised you the most about the different levels?
I think what has surprised me about the different levels is like it begins to separate a little bit more in people's attitudes. They're the more that you continue on your track of finding yourself and pursuing whatever your dream or whatever your pursuit is, the I feel like it's two groups of people split: fucking your haters and people who support you, you know. And those two groups for some reason get even more extreme the more you tap into what you're doing, you know. Like right now, I've not that I have any fucking like haters, you know what I mean? Like I don't think, you know what I mean, that anyone should have any, but like I just know that like my support team has gotten super tight and stronger, and I think that's because those who are supporting me like know exactly what they're meant to be doing, you know. So I think that's been like the most surprising thing for me is like I think the quality and value of of your support and people who want to help you like are more accessible, because at those levels, like those people aren't concerned about competition anymore. They're more concerned about upward mobility and being successful because they and themselves have been successful in their own right, you know. So I think that's been the most surprising thing. You'd feel like there's more competition, the more success, and I'm using that term like loosely. I feel like you'd be more, it's more daunting, but I feel like it's actually more satisfying and more relieving the more you pursue and the more you achieve, because you're surrounded by people who have done the same thing and who understand like what it takes.
No, for sure. And I appreciate that about the circle I have around me now. I would say for me that the most surprising thing for me is that I wasn't ready. Uh, I think now in my 40s, I'm finally like know about the work that it takes inside of myself to get myself ready for my surroundings and the things that are going around me. I understand things better now. I think that at a younger age, I used to put people on such a high pedestal and expected that as I reached
Yeah, no doubt.
different levels of success, that these people were going to be different types of people. Like, oh my God, but it's just like they're people just like you and I. They have their issues, they have their faults, and it surprised me, and it knocked me back down to just like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna be me, without understanding like, well, who is it that I am, who is it that I want to be, and how is it that I want to grow.
Yeah, bro. I just had my first taste of that this past year, and I'm 30, you know, and I had my first taste of that this past year. Um, and not to get into details, I had someone who I really look up to um, come up to me, and he saw that I was frustrated by an encounter I had, and he goes, "Look, man, like you need to fucking kill your idols. Like remove them. Like they're do not put false idols up on a pedestal." And like it made so much sense for me at that moment, because I was kind of having that experience where, you know, you have these people, or you have this certain like layer of hierarchy of people who you think are almost godly, you know, and you're like, wow, like these are not mortals anymore. And then you realize that they're just a piece of shit as you are, and that the reasons why they've gotten to where they are isn't necessarily as modest or as honest as you think they are, you know. So like I had that moment not too long ago, and that really flipped my fucking script.
Let's table that, because that's a conversation that I would love to have. So let's have that conversation next week. Let's end here. And you want to send us off with a song?
Yeah, I do. This one is Free Bird by Leonard Skinner,
All right.
as a great segue into our next topic.
For sure. Have a good night, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.